So I had an amazing chat with Andra. The hour went so quick. We didn't kind of realize that as soon as I noticed the clock, it was like an hour's long enough. But after actually we spoke for another 20 minutes or so, she has such amazing insight. And we also think quite alike, actually, in the way we think communication matters in the way we present our technical know-how. It's all well and good throwing buzzwords and throwing keywords that's very much tech oriented. But if the client or the person doesn't understand that, then what's the point? And she, being a marketer that's in the cyber space, cyber security space, it made me think about how, IT people and people in general talk tech without people understanding. And she really has some really interesting insight into the psychological aspect of how we need to kind of educate people into how cybersecurity and security in general, social media, we actually talked about a lot of stuff, how it really impacts us and how we interact with our devices, our technology and stuff. It's really, I'm not taking anything away from any of my past episodes, but this one, I got to say, was one of my favorite ones. And hopefully you enjoy it as well. Here's our conversation. I really wanted to talk to you because of that blog post you posted about security and so on. It was security for freelancers. Was that correct?
Yes, it was a guide for security for freelancers. Yes.
So, what prompted you to write it, basically?
Oh, I've developed several security guides for several kinds of, different kinds of people. But what prompted this particular guide was a story that I came across on Twitter. It was a freelancer who got her identity stolen. Someone set up a profile in her name using her work and all of her details and portfolio on a freelancing platform she didn't have an account on. And that scammer and impersonator was using her good name to pitch clients. And how she found out is that a client who found the dialogue a bit fishy on that platform reached out to her, sent her a message and asked her like, hey, is this you? I thought this was a little off. And that's how she realized that this whole thing had been going on without her realizing. And from my experience, I know that people are responsive to these kind of things. So to, taking proactive behavior and just doing things before things get bad, only when they have a story that impacts them emotionally. So I thought it was a good moment. And plus I so I published this guide in a community for freelancers, one of my friends set up. And it had a much bigger impact than I expected in the sense that I've been doing cybersecurity content for 6.5 years now. And
Right.
It's usually, there's some emotional distance there, and it's difficult for people to connect emotionally to these abstract notions. So what I try to do is to find that connection point and to find that trigger that gets people to pay attention and get people to see themselves through the eyes of, let's say, an adversary, which kind of changes your perspective on things.
Yeah, I mean, it prompted me to read it purely because it said freelancers. And the reason why it prompted me, the headline, was because I deal with a lot of freelancers and consultants and have done so for like 30 odd years. And pretty much 98% of them have no idea about this stuff. And it amazes me because they care about their wallet, not many, but they care about their wallet, but they don't care about their computers. And the computer, your email address, in fact, your email mailbox is the most important thing anywhere. You could lose your wallet and you can get your cards back. If you lose your email credentials, it's very hard to get everything that's connected with your email address back. And
Yes,
this is the
that
thing
is
that
so true.
I'm trying to tell people, and I hope people who listen to this and watch this understand that not just email, but security is so important. Encrypt your hard drive. Make sure you have different passwords. This is basically what you talk about. And so when I read it in total, I'm just basically nodding, like, yeah, let's talk to this person. I want to know who she is. So it was really cool to have this conversation with someone who does it for their job. I mean, this is what you do, right?
Yes, this is exactly what I'm doing. I'm thrilled that I have the opportunity to talk to people outside of the cybersecurity industry, because this industry in particular tends to have a very strong echo chamber. So we talk to each other, we know things are bad, we know what's going on, but we have a hard time getting outside of it. And that's because, and what I've realized over the past couple of years is that there aren't enough people that are focused on communication in the sense of translating things so that regular people, like, not you and me, because you're definitely an exception, but regular people who are freelancers or
Yeah.
whatever they do in their job, get this kind of, let's say, literacy, because it is fundamental. I mean, we can no longer separate our identity, our offline identity, from our online one. No matter how we still feel about the separation, it does not exist anymore. And what impacts us in real life impacts our online lives, and vice versa. And the more we ignore this, we're only making it more difficult for ourselves in the long run, because the concept of identity, and that's what fascinates me, and you were talking about this earlier when you mentioned email, the concept of identity is changing, and the way that we define not just our identity as humans, as individuals, but as humans in cyberspace and society in general, it's changing so much. It's influenced by so many things. And there are plenty of, let's say, mental models and ways to look at ourselves and what's going on around us that in cybersecurity work, and again, can really elevate your perspective. And it can help you get grounded, and also help you understand and navigate all of this complexity, because it's not going to get easier. No matter how much companies try to simplify things, it's not going to get
No,
easier,
it's
realistically speaking.
no, it's definitely not. And this is the angle I'm coming from, being in the tech space. Being in the tech space for 30 years, and I've always liked simplicity, not minimalism, simplicity, although I call it tech minimalism because it was a buzzword. Simplicity. I used to call it laziness. And the thing is, what you touched on, saying we need to make people understand with basically common language. Being so. Knowing tech people, and the reasons that they use tech is because they like the tech, not because of the client needs it. And when I noticed that in the early stages of my career, I'm like, okay, this is stupid, because this person doesn't need this, because it wasn't communicated properly. And I think communication, no matter where you are, I mean, if you're in a relationship, we're all in relationships one way or another. If the communication breaks down, everything basically explodes, right? So if you don't have the right communication, doesn't matter where you are, it's a huge problem. And I love the fact that you talk about the communication, because not many people do. Really, not many people do. And that's really strange, because as you said, echo chamber, we all talk about tech, we all talk about anything, it could be absolutely anything. But if the person that you're trying to communicate it to doesn't understand those buzzwords, and who are you talking to? What's the point of it? There's no reason to it. And that's why I've never liked hacks. I call them hacks. I've never liked creating a space where people couldn't get the information that they wanted. So I always talk in normal language. I mean, like, if it was a case of you have to put it in the bin, you have to do this because of this, like, no, put it in the bin, empty the trash. It's freaking simple. It's not, you don't have to over explain the thing. And often what I do, and I found myself doing it, like, it sounds like I'm talking to a child sometimes, but it helps. I had a client call me talking about my computer is full. And I'm like, well, I couldn't understand why, so I remoted it in. They're putting stuff in the trash, but not emptying the trash for the past God knows how long. And I'm like, how can I explain this? So I literally said, you have a trash can in your kitchen. Who comes and takes it out of your kitchen? Well, I do. Well, there you go. Right? Simple. And they appreciated it because they understood it. So clear, simple language matters a lot. And I'm going to start following a lot more now because of what you said as well. Because it matters. Simple language matters.
It definitely does. And I think that it's also simplifying language, but also finding that clarity and finding that that emotional trigger, not in the sense of manipulating people, but in the sense of striking that chord that means something to them. When I first started in cybersecurity, working as a marketer in cybersecurity, there was very little content. There was like super technical content and then very superficial and fragmented content and not much in between. While a lot has changed over the last 6 years, and there has been a substantial and exponential increase in the quantity and quality of content that's out there in terms of, cybersecurity education and awareness and things like that, there's still too much generic content that's made for everyone and talks to no one and speaks to no one. And most people
Preach.
don't.
I got to stop you. Preach. Carry on. Preach. Jesus. Yes.
People will not listen to this. What I try to always do is that I always talk to as many people as possible who are, they're not my friends, they're not in tech, like regular folk, and I try to understand, what's bothering them and who they trust for advice, because more often than not, tech and security, which is obviously part of technology, they will make people feel incompetent, and people don't like to feel stupid or unable to do things. And unless they feel capable of doing that thing, like whatever it is, installing antivirus or, start using a password manager or whatever it is, if they don't have that self-confidence, they're just going to reject it right away. And they're going to say, like, this is not part of my identity. I'm not going to take on something that makes me feel less capable than I think of myself. And it all boils down to human psychology. And what I love about this industry in particular is that it is packed with people who understand that, human psychology is the most important element. Technology in cybersecurity is like 2%, and the other 98% is getting processes right and communication right and things like that.
It's going back to the communication thing. If you're just talking in buzzwords and technical babble, which is what I call it. I mean, I'm in tech. I know all the babble. I still call it babble because even, the funny thing is even some of it I don't understand. I got to be honest. Sometimes when people talk in real tech, I'm like, dude, just say you're putting this phone from here to here. I mean, what are you using all this babble for? What's the point? If I don't understand it, how on earth do you think the average person who doesn't really care about it, they just want to know everything is safe, everything is secure, my computer works, or whatever it is, how are they going to understand it if you can't explain it to me simply? To me, the tech guy, right? So who's employing you? How are you getting any work? Because, as you say in the past, well, you said 6 years, but obviously in the past 10, 15 years, computers have got so ingrained in our lives, the phones and so on. I mean, you can go back further than that, but the thoughts of how people interact with them haven't changed so much and I see this because I'm feet on the ground talking to people all the time with my clients. And when I change their minds and when they are open to the idea of working the way I would say work, not because I say so, because it's better for you, they're so happy with it. So I had one client who was just all over the place with the computer and stuff. She needed a new computer. So she bought a brand new computer. We changed everything so it was online, safe, secure, password protected, etc. Her computer got stolen. And she was on the phone crying her eyes out. Oh my God, Kay, what can I do? Etc. I said, calm down, firstly. Secondly, everything's backed up. Everything is secure. Just go to the Apple store, pick up a computer, log in. Hour later, she called back and she said, oh my God, is that it? Is that all I have to do? Because now I have everything. She sent me so many chocolates. It was crazy. I'm like, yeah, it's not that hard. Once it's all set up, it's not actually that hard to set up. It's just whether you can do it or not, whether you want the help to do it. So it's not rocket science. It can actually be done without professionals doing it. But if you're not confident enough, you hire a professional to do it. I've built cars, but you know what? I'd rather just take my car to a garage. So I'm confident to do it, but I'd just rather pay someone. So it's the same thing. But she was so happy because everything was safe, everything was secure. We encrypted her computer, so there was no way that the person could ever use that computer again, etc., etc. And she was so happy about it. And it's happened a few times now since then. But again, it's really simple because of the communication between me and the client, explaining to her all of this stuff and calming her down and making sure that they understand where the data is, why we need to do this. So it was it's a hard slog to change people's minds when they've had this 20 years of experience with IT people, right? Because I hate being called IT. I hate it with a passion. So they have this, notion of what an IT person is. And then when they work with me, they're like, you're not an IT guy. I'm like, no shit.
Exactly. People have so many misconceptions that we need to work on, that we need to address to make it feel like things are part of normality, that they're attainable. And I love success stories like these, because when you get that feeling, when you have that initial panic that, oh shit, something really bad has happened. Oh wait, I have a backup. I have like all my stuff backed up. I have everything, access, like two-factor authentication. My accounts are protected. Then just the feeling of release and of peace is just, it's exhilarating, honestly. And I've seen people do that. And honestly, it's happened to me as well, because at some point I remember losing like a Google sheet with something that was super important. And I realized that obviously I had backed it up and everything went back to normal. And just in the span of 30 seconds, I was like, oh wait, oh, everything's fine. It's cool. I have this, because past me was careful enough about doing things. And to me, it is also people, even the term cybersecurity feels alien and foreign and super complicated, when in fact it is something, well, anything cyber related feels a bit sci-fi still, although we've gone way past that, the sci-fi scenarios. But in fact, there are simple things that you can do that also play into simplicity. So it's not just about, it's like getting your ducks in a row. It helps you put things in order. It helps you know where things are, especially the most important things, because that's what you want to prioritize, like, whatever super important documents you have, like client work that you don't want to lose. And anyone who's lost work at some point or another knows that that is very, very painful, and you do not want that to happen. It's a simple, sure.
No, I was sorry. I didn't want to stop you, but you said about keeping your clients' information safe, and that's so vitally important that freelancers never understand. So again, I work with a lot of coaches and consultants, and they have a ton of information from their clients. So when you say to them, "Where are you keeping this stuff?" and they say, "On my personal Google," and I'm like, "Uh-oh." Not personal. Personal, I think as well, Google, there's two Googles. There's the personal free one, and then there's the paid one. And even though it's the same company, they're actually two different companies in the sense of security and blah, blah, blah. They're completely separate. And a lot of people don't understand this either, which is again, communication. Because they say Google, I don't want to touch Google. Because I'm one of those people that I don't use any Google products, because of the don't be evil is turned into be evil. So I don't use
It does.
anything.
It has.
Right? I do, however, watch YouTube, and that's about it, really. Yeah. But anyway, they don't know the difference between the paid Google and the unpaid. So when you say to them, actually, I have ethics of not using Google, but they don't. So Google Workspace now, it was called G Suite, is actually probably a really good product for a lot of these people to use, but not the free one. Mm-hmm. So when they say to you, well, you don't use Google, why should I? I'm like, that's a personal ethic issue. So this is my ethics. It's up to you if you want to use it. If not, we'll find something else. So you have to think of those kind of things as well, because I only recommend things that I use, but then you have to think of the client and what their needs are as well. So it kind of depends on how you do it. So if someone says, well, I need to use Microsoft Excel, I'm like, well, you have a Mac, you can use numbers. Why do you want to pay extra? Because I don't use it. If they say, well, I'm an accountant and I use macros, yeah, okay, you have to use it, right? But I'm not like, no, don't use it. You have to, no. You have to use the right tool for the right job. And if you have a specific job and a specific thing that you need to do with that app, just because I don't like it, I'm not forcing you not to use it, right?
Yes.
But the security part of it matters. So again, Google, there's a good Google and a bad Google. Don't use the bad Google, but I just don't use the good Google.
No, I know, and you brought up actually a conversation that happens very often in security, which is so first of all, to your point about using free Google accounts, I would just like to remind whoever will be watching or listening that if you lose documents, Google will not be able to bring them back. I have seen this happen. They will not be able to bring them back if you're on a free plan. So once that's gone and once you've deleted it, that's bye-bye. And you're not going to be able to retrieve it no matter how hard you try. So keep backups and use a paid account. The second thing is that, to your point, that we should recommend stuff that people can actually use and people actually need. In the tech space and in the security space, there's always the debate of, if you want to be secure, you should use Linux. No one in their right mind will use Linux. No, we're not going to use that. That's absurd. You're not. Why would you want to make people's lives even more complicated than they already are? Let's try to teach people to just, what's your setup? This is my setup. Okay, let's see what you can do. Like, what's the baseline? What are the baseline things you can do to keep your stuff safe? Like, hey, better passwords, things like that. We have, there are so many simple solutions to use now that aren't even that expensive, and they're totally worth the money, especially in terms of password management. A password manager will simplify your life, make it more productive, and take a big pain off your back in terms of managing this stuff. And also, so it doesn't matter which operating system you choose to use, whether on mobile or on your laptop or desktop, whatever it is, on your tablets. It's just important to try to figure out, what's the best way that you can profit from that, product or platform. Also in terms of security, no matter what that is. And no, Macs are not safe by default. They're a great system. They're still a great system. I switched to the Apple ecosystem because of their focus on security, and I still root for them in that direction. They're not perfect, no company is, but they're as they're good enough for me, like you mentioned.
There you go. So if it's this is what I tell people: if it's good enough for a cybersecurity expert, it's good enough for everyone else. And as you say, everything you have, it doesn't matter what it is, you have to be security conscious about it. If you have a wallet, it's going to fall out your pocket. Someone's going to steal it. Someone's going to RFID it. There's something's going to happen with it, right? That's why we pay insurance. It's not necessarily because of the law, although it is illegal not to have the car insurance. But the point is, if you have insurance, you're safe in the knowledge that that's your backup, right? This is the tech speak. We have a backup of our files, and we have insurance just in case we crash our car, so we can get our car back, right? It's kind of the same thing. So if you don't insure yourself, like you said, with your documents and personal information, then only you're to blame, not anyone else, right? Because they're not.
Yeah.
There's so much information out there, good or bad, but at least you can get the basic information that you need. Going back to the Mac and PC thing, yes, Linux, blah, blah, blah. Let's not go there because that to me is IT talk. But the Mac and PC, again, yes, Macs are way more safer than PCs are, purely because of the operating system, not because of the box itself. And what people don't understand is that PC stands for piece of crap, but that's my personal belief. But PCs are not, it's not a company. It's a box that Microsoft has a license to put the operating system on. So those things don't work together just like an Apple does. An Apple, the operating system and the hardware work work well together. I can't say some words. So they work really well together. So the security part of it, I would say, is way better than the PC because of that factor. Now, there's still flaws. And they're always constantly finding flaws. It's like bugs in software. They have to fix the holes. But you can encrypt your hard drive. How do you do that? Push a button. It's encrypted. No one else can touch it. And things like that, that the fact that they've made it so simple is so much more reachable by non-techies. That I mean, there was a time where I got fed up with Macs and PCs, and I said, get a Chromebook, get Google blah blah blah, and get a Chromebook because it's cheaper. And I've told some parents, because they don't like the Apple or the PC, to get Chromebooks for their kids, because why not? Because a lot of schools here in Holland, they use Google ecosystem kind of thing. Mm-hmm. Get a Chromebook. There's nothing wrong with Chromebooks. But again, you have to secure yourself with it. It's the same with anything.
Yes, absolutely. And plus, there are so many, various entry points to your personal identity, belongings, and data. And besides, like, the operating system itself, it's good to be in a secure ecosystem, to have to realize what your main kind of castle that you're trying to protect is, whether it's your email address or your Apple account, or whatever your kind of main email address that ties into all of the other main accounts that you have, because that's how it starts. You use a weak password for your email, and that gets cracked, and you don't have like two-factor authentication enabled, and they just, attackers can just span out from there and reach all of the other accounts that you set up using that email address, including your online banking account and so many other things. But while the operating system can be safe, your browser is one of the most important entry points into your ecosystem ever. And that's often the least protected kind of piece of real estate that people have in their digital lives. So first of all, I would like to ask whoever is listening or watching to not store passwords in your browser. Please do not do it. They are stored in plain text. You can, if a malicious add-on or an add-on that was not malicious but turned malicious in the meantime, people install add-ons for all sorts of things. If that turns malicious, the first thing that it'll do is it'll look for your passwords, all of the passwords that you have saved in your browser, and those are so easy to reach. If you can see them, you can imagine that someone who knows what they're doing is, has a much more, it's so much faster and easier for them to reach them. And using those passwords, well, you can guess what they're going to do next. But do not store passwords in your browser. I've seen people in security companies do this, and it broke my heart. And I know. Because often people don't eat their own dog food. Often people, even in security companies, because they're still people and they're still, fallible, they will not practice what they preach. And I am very adamant about this. I strongly believe that you cannot be, persuasive when you're trying to help other people in this direction if you don't do things yourself, because you don't know how they feel, you don't know how the switch feels, you don't know, what kind of questions pop up in your head and things like that. So please don't store passwords in your browser. And second of all, when you get whatever security suite that you decide to use their browser add-ons. All of the good ones have browser add-ons, and they
Yep.
will filter the traffic coming into your browser and stop malicious pages and ads, and even like malicious software that sits behind infected websites that you can see and that actually infects your device without you noticing or clicking on anything or doing anything. And the bad guys, there's this saying in cybersecurity that I really feel explains the entire situation quite well, which is the bad guys only need to hack you once. And you have to protect all of those entry points to your system. And if you're just leaving, like, your browser is like just leaving the door open for them, or a window open, like you go on holiday and leave your window open, well,
it's true.
You're gonna have a bad time.
It's absolutely true,
especially if you post about it on social media.
Yeah, which you shouldn't do. No, I mean, it's true, because you're using the web browser. I mean, the amount of people that use what I call the wrong browser, but a lot of people like it. Please don't use Google Chrome. I use Safari. It's built in. Now, you brought up a interesting point, but there's a distinction between the browser holding your passwords and a password manager working through a browser, right? So 1Password is something I use. There's LastPass. There's a few others. I use 1Password because I've used it from the beginning of them, whatever. Anyway, however, Safari, even though it gives you the ability to store passwords, it doesn't store them in the browser, because the Mac has the keychain, which is a secure password manager, effectively. So not all browsers are the same. I just want to make sure that that's out there, because Chrome does hold it in the browser, and it does hold it in plain text. And I think Firefox also does it. I mean, they all do it.
Yeah.
The only one that doesn't do it, from what I understand, is Safari, because it's built with the software and hardware in mind, but it's built into the operating system, the keychain. So even though if you are using a Mac, the built-in one for Safari works. I'm not saying Safari is fallible. I mean, there's some problems with Safari as well that they're finding, but that's like bugs in any piece of software. And the other thing I like about Safari, even though people think, Apple walled garden, you can't do much, it's kind of to protect you, but it is an annoyance as well to a certain degree for people who like to change things and manipulate and, stuff like that. But those manipulations, like in Android devices, can be exactly right, can be hacked and etc. So yeah, I don't like people messing with the shit that I buy, i.e. Apple. Let me do what I want to do. However, there's the other side of it, whereas they're actually doing it for two reasons. One, for their own financial gain, blah blah blah, to keep in your system, but they're also doing it because it's actually safer to do it that way as well. So I'm not saying they're good, but yeah.
That's a very good point. And security is a compromise. It will always be. I think one of the most difficult things and one of the biggest challenges of our, let's say, era and going forward is to figure out how to get security to be usable and to be that invisible layer that's built into the system, but doesn't add friction points like we have now. When you lose your password, you have to retrieve it, you have to go to your email and go through a bunch of hoops to, get stuff done. But at the same time, we must realize as adults that we are, that there will be some compromises that we have to make, because I feel like gamification and in making things super simple has sometimes led to kind of infantilize people. They just, treat people like kids and not give them, the responsibility that they have. Security is a shared responsibility. The tag that you use has, of course, terms of use that no one reads that, give you your share of responsibility. And I feel like, it's of course it's one thing to try to make things simpler and smoother, and less friction
Yeah,
creating and things like
yeah.
that. But it's another thing to try to get people to feel like they don't have to do anything at all, because that will breed irresponsibility, and it will breed a false sense of security that so many people live with generally, and that leads to more security issues than we realize. People just not thinking like, sure, I'm
No,
gonna send all of these sensitive documents via WhatsApp. It's
yeah,
secure, it says it's encrypted.
yeah,
What
yeah.
could happen?
No, it's crazy. I mean, it's things like WeTransfer. I know lawyers who send stuff through WeTransfer. I'm like, dude, are you serious? I mean, this is no, you shouldn't do that because they store it and they can
Mm.
access the files. Now, if it's a file sending a dog picture to your granddad or whatever it is, yeah, whatever. But lawyers, doctors who use WeTransfer and Dropbox, they're not great for security either. The thing is, I'm not a cybersecurity expert in any shape or form, but because I've been in tech from the age of 103, from a long time ago, I know how it's transpired, and I know how to protect myself because I've always been in tech since I was like 8 years old. But a lot of people just don't get it, and as you say, they want the simplicity of it. But I turn it back and throw it back at them. So I say to them,
Mm.
if you lose your bank card and someone picks it up and goes to the bank, would you be happy if the bank says, "Oh, you've got the card? Yeah, no problem. This is your account. Here's your PIN number." You wouldn't be happy about that, right? You wouldn't, because your bank is gone. Not because you wanted the simplicity of, I just want my PIN. Can you just give it to me over the counter? You know it's me. No, it doesn't work like that. They have to post it to you. So I want to advocate companies posting your email password because it's never going to happen. But yeah, I mean, that's where we've got to now. So yeah, the simplicity of it, making things simple is very hard, right? However,
Oh, it is the hardest.
it's the hardest. However, people sometimes or companies sometimes make things simple because it's easy for them to make it simple. But that doesn't mean security wise it's good, right? Which is exactly what you're
Yes.
saying. And simplicity, if you want to do it right, is really freaking difficult. Really freaking difficult.
It is, and it can leave loopholes like this one. So when you mentioned the bank example, there's actually a type of attack that preys on telecom operators' inability to have secure processes for transferring
Wow.
your phone number to a different SIM. They're called SIM swap attacks. And
Right.
what an attacker will do is that they will call your telecom with information that they can easily find about you online. And
Yeah.
if your telecom provider doesn't have like strong authentication mechanisms to validate that that's you, with multiple details, and if you've posted those details on the internet or they got leaked in some way or form, cyber criminals can easily get those about you, and they will call the telecom operator and say like, hey, can you transfer, this phone number to a different SIM? And at some point, you realize that, hey, I don't have a signal. What's going on with my phone number? And by the time you realize that this is happening and you figure out a way to get it back and, block the scammer and so on, they will have already used your phone number to maybe get those two-factor authentication codes and log into your email or your online banking account and every other things that they can use through your phone number, which is also core part of our identity along with our email. And you might say like, hey, yeah, but I don't have that much money to my account, or my cards are empty. What can they do with that? They can use them for money laundering. They
Yes.
will use your empty accounts to transfer money that they have made through illegal activities like cybercrime or ransomware or a bunch of other things, and you will become part of an
Part of it.
illegal operation.
Yeah.
Exactly. And you can face charges and all those sorts of things. So yes, you can be a target and be a victim, even if they have, in theory, nothing to steal from you. They will find a way to use you in their operations, because that's what they do. That's their business
And the
model,
thing is,
literally.
it's easy. It's easy for them to do it. It's easy money. And this is what people don't understand. Oh, it won't happen to me until it happens to you. It's happened to someone I know very close to me, his wife, girlfriend, whatever, his partner, called me and said, I just got a call and they wanted to log into my computer. I was like, you didn't, did you? She said, well, yeah. And I was like, but you know me, why would someone else call you for a computer? So she was on the phone. And as soon as they said, give the credit card number, she actually started reading it out, the credit card. And I'm like, you didn't give all of it. I said, no, because I thought it was fishy. So I didn't give them the last 4 digits, luckily. And I'm like, the person, they're not stupid people, these people. They're not stupid people. But anyone could be duped. This is the thing. This is why these cyber criminals are so freaking clever that you don't expect it. I had a client who's, what you just said about SIM swap happened to him. And I'm like, well, and he called me to say, can you help me? I'm like, well, I'm no cybersecurity guy, but I'll help what I can. Let's change all your passwords everywhere. Let's start with that first. And we did. And luckily nothing else was changed, but they were trying to get into his bank account. That's what they were trying to do. Someone else called me about they said, I couldn't log into my LinkedIn and I couldn't understand why. And what they did, he had a Hotmail account or something. So they duped something or whatever. They got into the Hotmail, and luckily all they did was they created a rule. This is so clever. They created a rule that said anything about Hotmail, ransomware, whatever, just got deleted or got archived automatically. So even though you could use the email, you wouldn't see those emails coming in. And what they did went into their LinkedIn account and sent a bunch of messages. So they were literally just getting into the LinkedIn account without him knowing, basically.
Yeah.
Without him seeing the emails.
Happen.
Oh, it's crazy. They can do anything.
The examples are so powerful because they show us that, first of all, we can be the victims, but maybe what hurts most is that people we care about can become victims because of us or through us, using us as a stepping stone. Yeah. And we're talking about, children have their identity stolen and their futures compromised. People open up, this mostly happens in the States, but because, in Europe, we have a much more bureaucratic society, which sometimes helps us, especially in terms of security. It's painful to live with it, but at least we have that going for us. Yeah. But in the US, when people, when scammers and cyber criminals steal children's identities and they set up credit cards and loans in their accounts, and, you realize that your 13-year-old child now has
Mercedes,
tens of thousands of dollars in debt. Exactly. Yeah. And, like loan sharks come to your door and try to, get their money back. And it can get so messed up with consequences that are really long term, even when data breaches happen. So they happen today, but their effect is cumulative. Yeah. And the more data leaks about you, the easier it is for them to compound all this data and to profile you like really deeply and to automate attacks against billions of people. Because that's what happens. And I guess that, we may be, people in countries that don't have English as their primary language were mostly sheltered up until a few years ago when cyber criminals started translating and adapting their emails and their tactics and making them really professional, like not too many grammar errors, not too many Nigerian princes.
Yeah. I still get those emails. I started replying to them. This is the hilarious thing. That when I was using Facebook years and years ago, before it became the stupid thing it is now, I used to get lots of spam messages. And I was like, you know what? I'm never going to stop this. So let's play with them. And unfortunately, I didn't keep them, but they were all on my Facebook account at the time. So I was just posting. So you just play with them. So what I started doing was reply with absolute and utter gibberish. Like things like, yes, I would like to buy your goats, but only if one of them had 3 feet. But I'm not sure if they could use a telephone, because if they can use a telephone, they might be able to phone ET, and it's not possible to be able to buy a bunch of corn. And just complete nonsense. And you reply, and they would just sometimes reply back, and then you will reply again. And after 2 replies, they'll just leave you alone. And they'll take you off the email list, because that email account still exists. But they're like, okay, this guy's crazy. So that's how I personally, I'm not saying it works, I'm just saying it worked for me. And I wouldn't recommend doing this, but it did work for me. It was hilarious.
Sometimes it is fun to do. Sometimes it is fun to do, but yes, I also recommend like just mark it as spam and
Just mark
block
it as
that
spam.
email address. But
Yeah,
yes,
we're professionals. Let us do it.
we know at least we know what we're getting into. So yes,
Right.
definitely.
Yeah. It's
But
crazy
yes,
how you can really confuse them, but they are really clever. As you say, the language has changed, the way they are communicating. And a lot of the times, what I've noticed, that because there's a lot of YouTube channels that I watch, guy called Ben something, he goes after the scammers in Pakistan and India and stuff like that. Brilliant videos, because he does stuff with the BBC as well. And they are so, the scammers I'm talking about, they're so sophisticated that they hire people in the country to receive the money. So they don't have foreign accents and things like this. You know what I mean? So they can't be
yep.
deemed as, illegitimate and stuff like this. They're getting very, very clever about this kind of stuff.
It is. And with all the information we're willingly disclosing about ourselves online, we're just making it super easy for them. I mean, even burglars go on Facebook and
Yes.
see when people are leaving on vacation because they're posting their plane
Yes.
tickets. Please do not do this. And they know exactly like how long they're going to, not be home and where they've left and all of the other details. And we're just making like you're inviting them into your
It's it's
home. Be a
it's an
little, yeah.
it's an open invitation. So, okay, let's go through this, because someone asked me this. One of my first conversations I had with Sebastian, actually, because he was amazed that I don't use Facebook, WhatsApp, blah blah blah, all this stuff. Let's go. Let's ask you. Do you use any of those products, those platforms?
I do not use, so I closed my Facebook account years ago. Same with Instagram. Before I deleted them, you can basically delete all of the geotags on Instagram. At least you used to be able to do that, but it's been years, so I don't know if they still have that option. But if you want to go back, if you want to still keep using Instagram, but you want to like delete all of your check-ins, you can go and have all of that data
Wipe
wiped
them
out.
out.
I don't use those anymore, and it's been a massive burden lifted from my life. And I work
Yeah.
in marketing, and people ask me, not too many people, because people now understand nowadays, why I've decided to do this. But when I first closed my accounts like years ago, a few people asked me, but how are you going to work in marketing if you're not on Facebook? Like
It's
the internet,
crazy.
it is so extensive. There are so many places on the internet where you can talk to people that are not Facebook
Yeah.
and the other ones. And yeah, I haven't been able to move like my parents from WhatsApp
Yes.
to Signal, unfortunately.
Yeah.
It's difficult, but I've taught them like a couple of things that have stuck with them. Things like if you receive like strange messages or receive promo or things like that, send it to me first. I'll take a look at it. I'll tell you if it's okay to click or
Right.
not. So they do that, which is really good. But I try to keep my setup to a minimum. So even though I
Okay.
have a much larger digital footprint than most people, simply because I've been working in digital marketing for over 10 years, and it is part of my life. It is something that I've done knowingly.
Yeah.
And I know what I took extra precautions to protect myself. But I try to keep things minimal. I try to keep my, let's say, identity small in the sense of, not oversharing. I never liked posting pictures from my home or things like that, And I look at these bloggers and influencers, and they're like, you're just mapping out your home to
Constantly.
millions
Yeah.
of people. This is
Yeah.
not healthy in any way.
No,
But
I
yeah,
mean, the thing, I mean, with me, the only social networks I actually use is Twitter and LinkedIn.
same.
LinkedIn, I'll probably post my feet out of the window or something. Same with Twitter. But I mean, I record in my office. Um, so I used to also use Twitter, Instagram, or, all of that stuff back 10 years ago, kind of thing. But I started thinking, do I need to? What am I gaining from it? And now, but 5 years ago, why the fuck am I giving my details to to these companies, right? Um, I'm a strong believer in owning your own audience. So
Same.
if anything happens to any social media, I can still work, right? Because something happened to me back in 2009 via Google, and I was like, whoa, work has stopped. What's going on? Because I put my eggs in one basket, which was Google Ads. Google went to evil. I stopped using them. Facebook went to evil. I don't use any of their products. On a security point of view, it's very rare for me to post check-ins. Actually, I don't now. I used to have, I mean, Foursquare was a big thing as well.
Yeah.
It's a huge thing. But the only thing I posted there was I'm in my office. Well, everyone knew my office because I had a walk-in thing. So that wasn't a big deal. But I wouldn't post anything else or not too much. And then I started realizing about this own your audience. Why am I giving my data away? Then it turned into, wait a minute, this is a security issue, not an own your
Yes.
audience issue. It's a security issue. So
But
I
it ties in
became,
together.
yeah,
Everything
right.
ties in together.
Yeah, they do tie in together, but that's how I moved it from one to the other, kind of thing.
Mm.
First, I thought about a ethics issue for me, kind of thing, and then I turned it into a security issue. But it is actually both, effectively.
It is. It is both, and it affects us society wide because right now we're obviously the cliche with the speed of transformation and things like that.
Mm,
But besides that, the societal impact that technology has now is so deep, and it brings us so many ethical dilemmas and ethical issues, like you mentioned, that we need to fix because otherwise, not that we need to fix, but because we're never going to be able to fix them as a whole, but at
no,
least keep them in check. So we don't end up living in a dystopia that we've seen in movies. And it's fun when you get to leave at the end of the movie, but not if you end up
but not
living
in real
in that
life.
kind of society. Exactly, exactly. So I
No,
strongly believe so. I don't, tech literacy and the security part that comes with that is not optional. It is
no,
essential. It is, and it's even more important for the younger generations who are born with technology that don't know what the world looks like without it. We have, having been these generations that know what life looked like before the internet, we have some sense of, let's say, a different understanding of social relationships and things like that, and interaction, and what's artificial and what's authentic and things like that. And I
mm,
think we have a stronger radar of knowing when things like really drift from, they become like really divergent with what is healthy. But kids don't have that. They were born, they think this is normal to be constantly connected. And like you mentioned at the beginning of our conversation, our brain, our biology has not evolved to keep up with these things. And
no.
that's why we're dealing with so much anxiety and so much pressure. And Lord, I'm just happy I'm not a teenager in 2021
Oh,
because it
wow.
sucks.
It does suck. Yeah. I mean, the thing is, I'm so lucky that I was born back in the 60s, late 60s, that I could go outside and play with sticks and not worry about is there a like waiting for me? Is there a heart waiting for me? Did my stick playing go viral or whatever? I'm so glad of that because
Yes.
because we shouldn't care about that. And that's not how people, no, forget kids, that's how people shouldn't be living. We're living in a society where we're waiting for confirmation of what we're doing rather than actually doing what we need to do, which is live our lives. Our life shouldn't be I have this thing where life should be, I have this saying where basically work should be incidental to life and life shouldn't be incidental to work. And social media now plays a big role to that because life should be the main thing. So social media should be just a plaything that's incidental. It shouldn't be your main focus. But people, influencers, and I fucking hate that saying, but influencers have created this, like you say, this vision of how the world is, which isn't true, which is basically like adverts and magazines. There were restrictions on those things. And I think restrictions should happen on the internet to a certain degree as well. The thing is, the internet, I was there at the beginning as well. And it was such a beautiful thing. It was like, wow, I can send this file to my friend. I can do this now instead of sending a letter. This is awesome. And it's turned into this closed system where these big tech companies have basically said, this is my area. This is my area. And they've changed the landscape of what the internet was supposed to be. And I wished, I really do wished that Tim Berners-Lee did charge a nanocent every time someone used www. Not for the money, for him, because he didn't want that. What he wanted was the World Wide Web to be free and open. Unfortunately, and not blaming him, he didn't charge for it because he wanted it to be open. But if he had charged for it, that money would have gone into not the crap that we have now. The education, the different kind of infrastructure, the lawyers, etc., etc. He would be the richest guy on the planet, basically, if that happened. But then again, would the internet be as big as it is if he did do that? Because then some people would see it.
Probably not. That's a different timeline, and I think that it is. The internet, I still think about, you mentioned, just being able to play outside without any kind of afterthoughts whatsoever.
Right.
I was in college and I didn't have a smartphone in college, and it was the best experience. I did not feel compelled to check anything. And I gave a class at a master's program like 2 years ago in person, and 80% of the kids were staring down their phones.
They're like this.
And because it was the first time for me, like doing this in front of students, I could not muster up the courage to say, like, you know what, if you don't get off your phone, get the fuck out, because I'm not taking this.
Oh, I wish you did. Oh, I wish you did.
Yeah, I wish I did as well. But if I'm going to do that again, if that happens again, I promise that I will tell
Record
them.
Record it.
Myself. Yeah.
It'll go viral. We'll make it go viral.
Oh, no, I do not want to go viral. Please do not. But yes, the internet is a magical thing, and I still appreciate it so much because of the internet and because of, due to Twitter, which I love. It's my favorite social network. I've met the best people there.
Yeah.
We're having this conversation now, and it's changed my life in so many ways. It's made me a better person in so many ways, but it also scares the crap out of me because I feel like things we're losing control of things. And we're losing control in the sense that too much power is in too few hands, and that's never good for anyone ever. And what Tim Berners-Lee wanted to do with the internet was avoid specifically that, to keep the internet free and decentralized and independent of political control. But as the humans that we are, as the species that we are, politics always gets
greed
everywhere.
Greed. It's greed. It's not just politics. It's more to do with greed. It starts with greed and then turns into politics. And it's always greed. Doesn't matter what country you're in. Doesn't matter how high you are. It's my balls are bigger than yours and I want more money, and it's greed. That's basically it. And that's the unfortunate thing. But anyway, hey, this has been an awesome chat. We're definitely going to do this again, especially Especially if you record the "get the fuck out my room." We'll talk about that definitely as well. But hey, honestly, it was a great chat. Time flies because I can't believe it's been an hour already. But
Me either.
when you enjoy a chat, the time flies. Hey, again, thanks
It
again.
is so true.
Have a great day, and I'll talk to you soon.
Thank you. Thank you too. This has been incredible. And I feel like this renewed sense of energy. And it is so nice to talk to people like fighting the good fight and trying to help others. I think that is one of the best things that we can do with our lives in general. So thank you for this.
Absolutely. Awesome. Well, I'll see you on Twitter.
Yes.
See you later. Ciao.